Welcome back to the NA3HL. My name is Piper Gallagher, bringing you the 3 View. Here to talk about the upcoming season is head coach of the Peoria Mustangs, Chase Ernst. Alrighty, how's your summer been?
Summer's been great. Like a lot of the guys have said, it's been a busy summer. I mean, we really went to work. I accepted this position on January 1st, essentially, of the 25-26 season. And through allowing Luke Gruden to finish the season behind a bench, it allowed me to, get into the GM capacity immediately and get on the road. And so I watched a lot of hockey for the first 4 months, in my role. And it just built a great momentum into the summertime where we really, were fortunate to tender some great players. We drafted some high end kids. We got 6 returning veterans that are coming back to a group that on paper looks ready to compete for a Central Division playoff position.
Absolutely. You've had extensive experience in this league and you know it very well. How are you able to carry that knowledge into your role here with this team?
Well, it's an honor and a privilege to be able to be the GM and the head coach of the Peoria Mustangs. I mean, this is, in all honesty, a storied franchise, not just inside the NA3HL, but inside all of junior hockey. And so as a kid growing up, just kind of down the road in St. Louis, I mean, we're fortunate to have the history of the St. Louis Junior Blues, but everybody knew the Peoria Mustangs. Now I was a little older at the time when they came in 99, 2000, already in my coaching career. But the reality is this franchise is nearly 3 decades old, has a winning percentage floating around 600. And it's just a phenomenal place to develop and advance young men inside the sport. And so our culture of champions is the theme this year. And we are rebuilding on this foundation that's been laid for nearly 3 decades.
You talked a little bit about culture just then. Your bio on the Mustangs website says that you have a deep commitment to culture and character on your team. What culture pillars are important to you to instill in the teams that you coach?
We believe 100% in 4 pillars of strength, right? The number one being, and frankly, in my 28 years of doing this professionally, I believe it's the number one thing that you must have, and that's all in. And so it's easy for an organization to be all in, right? But we really ask a lot of our players, and that is, the first pillar really gets put in place by you. And so once our players are all into this organization, we immediately reciprocated that. And so through that number one pillar of being all in, we then really just move to the next 3, which are structure, discipline, and accountability. And so we build kind of a 30,000-foot view, of what that's going to look like in regards to who we're out scouting, who we're recruiting, the type of organizations inside the youth leagues that we're building relationships with, who ultimately are developing inside their organizations, their programs, these human beings, right, who can then want to be all in and then understand that the structure, discipline, and accountability, those additional pillars, are what ultimately is going to create our culture of champions.
Absolutely. As you know, advancing players to higher levels of hockey is a big aspect of this league. How do you think your past NA3HL experiences help you coach players who are looking to earn college commitments or even play in the North American Hockey League?
Well, being in this brand now for quite some time and, really just having 28 years of professional experience on this side of the fence after my playing career ended, it's relationships. And that's really as simple as it is. Now, they have to be trusted, confident, relationships with the right individuals. And, I believe wholeheartedly that champion-minded individuals inside the junior ranks build relationships and bonds with champion-minded collegiate guys. And coming up through the ranks over these years, you build these rock-solid relationships. And the cream kind of rises to the top, and the right organizations connect with the right collegiate programs, and therefore you truly do develop a ladder of development. And I really pride myself and the organizations that I've been involved with inside the NA3 that have a pretty good track record of advancing players, not just to the collegiate ranks, but if they have that time on their side, in regards to a little younger birth year player, we really do have those relationships inside the NA brand as well, and those relationships with those organizations and coaches that have lent itself in the past and hopefully will continue in the future to advance kids into the NA from our organization.
You've talked about spending a lot of time on the road over the summer and throughout some of the early season. What about this upcoming team looks promising to you? Do you have any veterans coming back from last year's team or even newcomers that you've recruited that you think will make big impacts for you?
So we have 6 veterans that are returning, and they're the right veterans, right? And so it's a good, solid group to build this core around. We really have a strong back presence. I'm a real firm believer of building kind of from the back out. We have 3 excellent goaltenders. Our goaltending situation is a good situation. I'm sure the guys maybe don't like hearing that we have 3, 1A, 1B, 1C guys, but the truth of the matter is we have a great group of goaltenders, and so I'm confident we're going to shine there. From our defensive standpoint, we're only returning 1 veteran, but we have 7 really seasoned rookies. I know sometimes you think if you're a rookie, you're coming into the league and maybe you're a little younger, but the truth of the matter is we recruited a lot of '07s that were coming out of midget, AAA, and AA hockey. So therefore, they're turning 19 years old when the season starts. So we have a little seasoned um, the presence to us. And then up front, we really got blessed with some dynamic, high end talent. And so I'm very confident that this team from the back up is going to come every night. It's going to compete. Notice I haven't said any individual names per se, but the reality is that's part of the culture here. It's not about the cliche, the name on the back, it's the logo on the front. But the reality is, if we talk sometime in the Blaine Showcase, then I'll be able to give you some names of some guys who have really stepped up since then. But until then, we're a collection of individuals coming together to, rebuild this Mustangs brand into what we know it can be.
Absolutely. What are some of the on ice things that you want to focus on early in the season?
Well, our players are reporting Saturday, August 15th. So depending on when this drops, we may be in camp, and we're running a 3-week training camp, kind of in 3 phases. Our first week, we're calling our foundation week. We're doing 2 days of ice sessions, a lot of team meetings, a lot of individual meetings, just kind of setting the standard for what it's going to be like from a present standpoint, being a Mustang. Second week, we'll slow things down a little bit, do a little bit more tactical, more structure work in regards to how we want to play the game, introduce our identity and our brand of hockey, which is simple and high percentage, fast and direct, heavy and hard. So our opponents know, what they're going to get every single night when the Mustangs step on the ice with them. And then that third week is really in season because we'll drop the puck that Friday the 4th against Wausau here at Owens Center. So, we're excited to be able to get the guys into town. We're excited basically to bring 8.5 months of work to fruition. And we're excited to drop the puck on the 26-27 season in this rebuilt Mustang organization.
And what goals do you have for the team during the season?
Our goal is to develop and advance boys into men, right? At the end of the day, why we're in junior hockey is ultimately to advance, players. But at the same time, we have a motto here inside our signature that we will definitely develop you for the game, but we will prepare and advance you, for life. And so that's our number one goal, obviously. Now, a close 1A, I guess, from a hockey operation standpoint, we have every intentions of qualifying for the playoffs this season, and we're going to put that out there, publicly, but that's the number one goal of this organization. And I know basically where we've been over the last 3 years, that can be a lofty, goal or expectation, but I am very confident with the players we're bringing into this organization this year and the culture that we're creating. We're going to achieve that goal, hopefully.
And then my last question for you today is what are you most excited about for this season?
I'm excited to get back behind the bench, to be honest with you. When the last, let's just say, 8 years of my professional career have kind of been spent in ownership, front office capacities. And so I made a conscious choice that I wanted to get back behind the bench. And when the Peoria Mustangs came knocking on the door, proof that the hockey gods exist. And so it was an honor and a privilege to be, reached out to and asked if I was, ready to take on this undertaking. And, I immediately said yes, and got to work. And so I'm just excited to be back behind the bench. I'm excited to have the honor to, be a Peoria Mustang and to just start, this next chapter inside this story franchise, really.